Hello, everybody. Welcome into this very rare hatless edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast here on YouTube. My name's Andy Herman. First of all, thank you so much for all the views and likes yesterday. Yesterday was the most viewed podcast on YouTube so far, so really appreciate that. I've also been insanely overwhelmed with positive comments. I thought as soon as I would start posting videos, I'd be getting a lot of dislikes on the right-hand side rather than the likes on the left-hand side, but you guys have been absolutely tremendous. The comments have been beyond amazing. The likes have been great. Almost 1,000 followers. We're getting there, so thank you so incredibly much. Just around a month of doing this, and the results have really been overwhelming, and I can't thank you guys enough. My main topic today, and really the topic that I want to discuss today, involves an aspect of Matt LaFleur's coaching that I don't think always gets enough credit, and that's how he really finds different ways to utilize role players, both on offense and on defense, and find ways that within situations in different parts of the game that he can utilize these players to make them more successful and also make the team more successful. And I think there's a variety of different ways that he's done that. I want to start by talking about Marcedes Lewis and to an extent the tight ends as well. I think Lewis is the 1A example of this. You go back to Lewis's usage under Mike McCarthy, even though they needed that blocking tight end, it was something that they didn't have on the roster. They had brought in Jimmy Graham at the same time. Mike McCarthy didn't use Marcedes Lewis. He didn't get him on the field. When he did get him on the field, he was used as a blocking tight end, but he was so few and far between that he was basically cold coming off the bench, would play one or two snaps, and then you wouldn't see him for maybe another couple quarters, would play another snap here or there, and he just never had any rhythm on offense, and he didn't perform well, which is understandable. And Matt LaFleur has utilized him in an entirely different way. He's used him obviously as that blocking tight end, but he's used him in the red zone. We saw him come up with the big touchdown against Detroit. He's just been way more ingrained in this offense, but they're not asking him to do a ton of things, putting him in the slot. They're not asking him to, motion back in the backfield and be a fullback. They're asking him to kick ass at the tight end position and block like he's made to block. And there's times, and I've mentioned this on my Marcedes Lewis episode, where he looks like an offensive tackle out there, which, oh, by the way, when he was unable to play this last week, all right, how can we figure out a way to get somebody in there who can provide that same type of blocking ability? Maybe doesn't have to be the biggest threat down the field. Oh, hey, we could use Rick Wagner in that role. If you remember the old U71, the U-Bacon formation with Kevin Barry back in the Mike Sherman days, we brought back U71 this week, and Rick Wagner was in playing that tight end, position that Marcedes Lewis did. Listen, the Packers aren't fooling anyone when Marcedes Lewis rolls out there. They're not going to attack with him down the field a ton. You don't need a tight end in that situation, in those roles, that is going to be attacking the team down the field. You need somebody who's going to block and kick ass. It can still be a pass play. You protect with 6 guys on plenty of pass plays. You can still sneak them out from time to time, which they did with Rick Wagner, by the way, but it's finding ways for these players to be successful. They found a way to do that and fill the role with Rick Wagner. They did it with Marcedes Lewis going back to last season. Jay Sternberger, another example of this. You're not asking him to come in and be that same run-blocking physical tight end. Do you ask him to run block and pass block from time to time? Yes, but more often than not, he's one of those players that's going in motion, and you're seeing him, line up as a fullback or an H-back from time to time. You're getting him in space. You're getting him down the field in wheel routes. You're asking him to be more of that move wide receiver slash tight end, and that's what he's going to be good at. I know he had some drops earlier in the season, but you're asking him to play those specific roles and roles that he can be successful in. You saw a very similar thing with Robert Tonyan, earlier, where they weren't asking him to be that move wide tight end. They're asking him more to be a blocker. And then this year, they put him in that position to be kind of that number 1 overall tight end. They're putting him in a role to be successful. He has responded to the call, and he's been fantastic for Green Bay through the first 4 games of the season. Tyler Ervin, another perfect example of this. All right, what does Tyler Ervin do well? Well, he's very good in space. He catches the ball well. He can be a playmaker. All right, we've got Aaron Jones and, Jamal Williams at running back, so how can we utilize him? Also, we love to run jet sweeps, jet motions, orbits, reverses, etc. But Devontae Adams isn't really that guy. Allen Lazard's not really that guy. MVS is, but he's kind of more of a straight line speed sort of guy rather than the I'm going to juke you out of your boots sort of thing, or out of your jock if you'd prefer. Well, how about we try Tyler Ervin in the slot? Make him learn wide receiver a little bit more. He can be the guy that does those jet sweeps, the reverses, the orbits, everything else. And oh, by the way, he can kind of move like a slot receiver in certain situations as well. A perfect fit in a way to get him on the field and utilize him with what he's best at. Will Redmond's another example of this. Listen, if Will Redmond only played special teams, he would have enough value to keep around. I'm not sure he's in, the level of a Jarrett Bush, maybe even a Jeff Janis. I know you'll all love a Jeff Janis reference whenever you can get one, but I'm not sure that he's to that level yet as a special teams player, but he is a core special teams player on this team. All right, well, what can Green Bay do to get him on the field and maybe use some of that open field tackling and some of that aggressiveness? Well, we're going to use him maybe more in that hybrid nickel linebacker role. And while I don't think he's been as good at it as a Raven Green has been, and I think we need to see more of Raven Green, I still think they found a way to utilize him. And yes, he had a very bad game against the New Orleans Saints. No question about it. But the other 3 games this season, he played very well. Maybe very well as being aggressive, but he played well in all 3 of those games. Graded in the positive for me in all 3 of those games. He's still, I think, a slight negative now just because his game against the Saints was really bad. But sometimes Alvin Kamara is going to get you in the open field. And if you take maybe a couple of those big plays away in that game from Will Redmond, he's had a really nice start to the season. And the fact that you can get something out of him from time to time, I think it's fair to say you probably don't want Will Redmond out there for 50, 60, 70 snaps, but can you find a role for him for maybe 10 snaps a game on defense on top of what he can give you as a special teams player? Yes, and they found a way to do that. I go back to last season, Allen Lazard, Jake Kumerow. Prior to Allen Lazard really kind of breaking out as a wide receiver, what's something that they do well? Oh, they're phenomenal run blockers. Lazard is, and Jake Kumerow is actually the number 1 run blocking receiver per Pro Football Focus, easy for me to say, a season ago. So what does he do? He gets them in a lot on running plays, and then when teams are expecting run, when they see them in the game, they're using both of their route running ability to get open, using max protection, giving them a little bit more time to get down the field, and they're taking advantage of that. You saw that quite a few times with Jay Kumerow a season ago. Again, it's finding a way to get these players on the field doing what they do well. Every single one of the players on your 53-man roster has something that they do well. They wouldn't be on a 53-man NFL roster if they didn't. And Matt LaFleur has been really, really great at finding what those things are and utilizing them. And I think, Josiah DeGuara is out for the year. I think that's why his talent is so tantalizing for this team, because Matt LaFleur is going to find a way to put him in successful, spots and able, have him be, an asset to that offense, whether it's as a fullback, an H-back, a tight end. You can move him out wide. You can do so many different things. And if you're the GM and Brian Gutekunst, you love drafting a player like Josiah DeGuara and giving Matt LaFleur access to him because you know he's going to use him in the best possible ways. John Lovett, he's going to now take in a lot of those different roles that Josiah DeGuara was responsible for. I expect Lovett to be more of a pure, probably fullback, honestly. I think if you're going H-back, I think you're going to see some Sternberger. I don't think Lovett's going to really factor in too much as a tight end, but he can give you a variety of those different looks. And as time goes on, I expect Matt LaFleur to find unique ways to use him and be successful with him. MVS, another player who, while he's becoming more of a receiver this year, last year he was kind of more that speed weapon, and they used him that way. They used him for shot plays. They used him aggressively down the field. You still see it early in this season, and what that's doing is that's taking safeties and it's forcing them to play over the top of MVS and, opening things up for hopefully eventually Devontae Adams. It's opening things up for Robert Tonyan, Aaron Jones, and Jamal Williams. Because MVS is out on the field and they're using him either as a deep threat or as a decoy, it's helping the offense, and that's what MVS does well. And I conclude this by saying that's why I'm really excited and hopeful that when Equanimeous St. Brown comes back, Matt LaFleur is going to have that same type of plan for him. All of those little play-action boot fakes that in the past we've maybe seen go to Allen Lazard, or we've even seen some jet sweeps and some motions to Allen Lazard. Now imagine that being Equanimeous St. Brown with better speed, more agility, can do better things in the open field. This is not a full-fledged, fully grown wide receiver yet in Equanimeous St. Brown, but there are things that he can do well. And I cannot wait until Matt LaFleur has access to him, because remember, we saw some of what Equanimeous St. Brown could do with Mike McCarthy in that season, but he was out all last year for Matt LaFleur, and now he's just potentially getting him back. He's practicing again. I'm excited to see what Matt LaFleur can do with Equanimeous St. Brown now that he finally has access to him as soon as he gets pulled back up off that IR list and as soon as he's ready to play football. So I think one of the most underrated aspects of the Matt LaFleur era so far is how he utilizes talent. Maybe not some of the top names on the team, but some of these role players, and finds ways to put them in spots to be successful. That does it for me. Make sure to check out Maggie and Jimmy and Gage today on the Pack-A-Day podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. I will see you right back here tomorrow on YouTube. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.